Remember, they kept saying, Donald Trump contributed to this massive debt. He says, look, we had the pandemic. I had to do what I had to do. I need to fix this. And he's trying to. He talks about an out-of-control government, all these employees, that nobody's on top of it, the corruption, the waste, the fraud and abuse. And he's serious. He comes into office, hits the ground running. In 3 weeks' time, he's done more than most presidents have done in 4 years. Joe Biden was asleep at the wheel, but the people running the government at the time, they were not asleep at the wheel. They were arch radicals. And Donald Trump's trying to deal with it. I want to discuss a few things here related to the effort to sabotage the past election, Donald Trump's promises and his implementation of those promises, and the effort to get the federal government under control. There is a massive propaganda effort taking place here, as there always is, by the people who live and work, benefit from, grift off of a massive centralized government, much of which is utterly unconstitutional. Now, you're watching legal analysts on TV of all stripes tell you that what's taking place here is unconstitutional, that Donald Trump doesn't have the power over the executive branch, that Donald Trump doesn't have the power to free spending, even for some of these radical left-wing programs and grants that were pushed at the end of the Biden administration. Biden had the power to push them. Trump doesn't have the power to even examine them. Trump doesn't have the power to look at the Treasury Department data to determine who's getting what, because, you know, we don't want him and Elon Musk and these other people to reveal specific information, private information about individuals. Donald Trump doesn't have the power to offer severance to federal employees should they retire early and take the severance and so forth. So in other words, what are they saying? That the head of the executive branch doesn't have the power to run the executive branch. And what he's doing, they keep saying, is unconstitutional. Now here's the Constitution, ladies and gentlemen. Actually comes with the Declaration, the Constitution. It's not that hard to read. It's right here. It's very, very simple. Here's what I know. Donald Trump is the executive branch under the Constitution. Nobody else. All these other entities, these departments and so forth, they're not in the Constitution. They have to be created by statute. By another entity that's in the Constitution, we call it Congress. That's Article 1, Congress, Article 2, the President. Then we have Article 3, the judiciary. Wow, you're telling me the framers of the Constitution and the ratifiers in the state, they created all these courts? No, they created one court, the Supreme Court. All the other courts are created by an act of Congress signed off by the President of the United States. All these federal district judges who were ruling, they were created by statute. All the appellate courts and those judges, they're created by statute. The only court that's created under the Constitution is the United States Supreme Court. They created the position of the Chief Justice, but they don't call him the Chief Justice. Do you know what they call him? The Chief Justice of the United States Supreme Court. Very specific. They don't even mention how many members of the court there need to be or should be. Started out with 7. As you know, we now have 9. They've tried other numbers as well. And of course, the Democrats want to cram the court with like-minded Stalinists, Leninists, Maoists. So they keep talking about expanding the court and, of course, attacking its independence. But that for another day. So here we have 3 branches of government. Now, let's circle back. I won't go through the ugly details. You're aware of this. The prior regime, the Biden regime, used the Department of Justice, working with local and state prosecutors to try and prevent Donald Trump from becoming president of the United States a second time. And so they concocted all sorts of allegations and then charges and brought them mostly in these hardcore Democrat areas. Now, in Florida, the judge was actually independent, Judge Cannon, and she said, first of all, Mr. Prosecutor, you're unconstitutional. You shouldn't even be here. And she had the help with friend of the court briefs from 2 former attorneys general, McCasey and Meese, who said he's an unconstitutional prosecutor for a number of reasons, violating this, the Constitution, the Appointments Clause. That he had to be appointed under the Appointments Clause, given all the power that he had, more power than any U.S. attorney, and every U.S. attorney has to go before the Senate to get confirmed. He was more powerful. And not only that, he was appointed for the sole reason to get Trump. He didn't have a big caseload of all these cases. No, it was Trump. They even violated the Justice Department regulations in his appointment. Why? Because you don't appoint a special prosecutor to go after somebody outside the Department of Justice. You appoint them to go after people, or at least investigate them, within the regime. So there's no conflict of interest. Otherwise, it's the U.S. Attorney and the criminal division that look at it. So they even violated their own practice, but so be it. So be it. So we saw what happened with the January 6th case. The Supreme Court ruled that one of the charges involving obstruction had nothing to do with January 6th and should not have been used. That was the Enron obstruction case. They threw that out. Then they dusted off the 1871 Ku Klux Klan Act. That had nothing to do with anything. And then they dusted off some federal contractor felony statute for federal contractors that misappropriate funds. That had nothing to do with that. And that's the best they had. There was no case, but there was a Democrat grand jury in a Democrat city. And remember, in a grand jury, all they hear from is the prosecution. Prosecution witnesses, prosecution information. The potential defendant has no rights, no lawyer, nothing. Nothing, because that's not considered the trial. So to get an indictment, as one famous person once famously put it, you can indict a ham sandwich. It's true. The whole process has been abused. So you add that. You have in Georgia, that case has completely fell apart given the corruption of that prosecution. And of course, we know all about New York and how corrupt that is, a complete concoction that really is out of kafta. It's so outrageous and disgusting. So they did all these things. Now Donald Trump wins a massive landslide thanks to you. Thanks to him and thanks to you. You want Donald Trump as president. He campaigned on specific things, getting control over the swamp, cutting government, trying to get some control over the debt. Remember, they kept saying, Donald Trump contributed to this massive debt. He says, look, we had the pandemic. I had to do what I had to do. I need to fix this. And he's trying to. He talks about an out-of-control government, all these employees, that nobody's on top of it, the corruption, the waste, the fraud and abuse. And he's serious. He comes into office, hits the ground running. In 3 weeks' time, he's done more than most presidents have done in 4 years. Joe Biden was asleep at the wheel, but the people running the state at the time, the government at the time, they were not asleep at the wheel. They were arch radicals, and they instituted a lot of stuff. And Donald Trump's trying to deal with it.
Want to see more Mark Levin? Go to LevinTV.com and subscribe now.